Hi everyone, and welcome to Food for Thought and Natural Health Radio. We are proud owners of yet another award in our cabinet this week. The Scoot Headline Awards gave us second place in the health and wellbeing category. So we're doing the right thing and being recognised. And I wouldn't be doing it if you weren't listening and you weren't supporting me in the work that I do and I have a passion for, which is natural health. Now I'm going to move on to someone else who I know has got an incredible passion about the work they do. I've been having a little bit of a break from recording recently, but I couldn't pass up the opportunity when he gave me a ring and he started to talk to me about the fact that he'd been to India and he'd been looking at the hospitals there using Nature Cure. It took my breath away, if I'm absolutely honest. So let me welcome to the show Robert Mazure.
Debbie, lovely. Thank you very, very much indeed. Lovely to be here with you. Thank you.
How are you today?
I'm absolutely excellent. How are you?
I'm perfect.
Good.
Now, firstly, give my audience a little bit of a background about yourself and how you became a practitioner and then a documentary maker.
Wow. Okay. So how I became a practitioner is actually very interesting. So I think for a very long time, I'm 42 years old right now. I think for a very long time, I had the desire to help other people infused in me. And I think that actually stems from like my childhood. I took a destructive path when I was a child. I had a lack of direction and self-esteem and so got myself into trouble. Ended up in prison for a few years actually. And then when coming out of prison, I had this sort of this distinct awareness of this desire I had to actually help other people. And I was really confused as to where it was actually coming from and what it was actually all about. And then nonetheless, I realized now in later life, some years later, when I became aware of the practices of nature cure, naturopathic healthcare, that I was able to apply this desire that I really strongly had there. And I think the reason I had the desire when I came out of prison as a kid when I was 25 years old is because while I was there, I could actually see that there was real potential in prison. There are a lot of people with real potential, with real ability, and they never had a chance to use it. And I realized that I really wanted to help people in some sort of way. And so in the field of nature cure, I intend to set up naturopathic health rejuvenation centers here in the UK. And I'd like to develop some sort of scheme so I can take young offenders and give them some sort of apprenticeship and in that way sort of give back to those people that don't quite have the opportunities that most other people do have. And so that's where my sort of little inkling to help other people comes from. Then later on in life, I still didn't quite have the direction that I certainly have now, until a friend of mine gave me a CD on ancient cultures, ancient civilizations. And what I actually discovered through that CD, the fact that the ancient knowledge, I learned about pyramids, Egyptian pyramids, and the fact that, for example, the 3 pyramids of Giza are perfectly aligned to the Orion star belt, that the Sumerian cosmology, their understanding of our solar system, which was in advance to what we actually had back in the 1940s, and they had this knowledge 6,000 years ago. And that sort of thing just totally blew my mind. And so I actually came to learn of their system of healing, the fact that they would actually use water, hydrotherapy, they'd use herbal medicine, massage, fasting. And that really, really lit me up. And that actually came to lead me to become a naturopath. That's how I've become a naturopath. So a very unconventional route, but one that's really sort of caused illumination in me.
Absolutely fascinating and astonishing shift and change for you as well.
Oh yeah, very, very, a massive sort of shift and change. And so I addressed this, what I've just described to you on my documentary itself. It was very much when I introduced yoga into my lifestyle. I'd start practicing yoga and I'd start practicing meditation. And meditation especially fit me perfectly, just like a glove on a hand. And before I knew what, I was immersing myself in these yogic practices, meditation, pranayama, pranic breathing, and then all these other interests came to me right at the very same time. And so I really am very, very passionate that it's not just me that has this sort of shift in mindset and that receives these benefits, and that like other people can also receive the benefits as well. And so while I was actually away in India, I did a lot of recording of schools that had yoga installed in the schools as a compulsory subject. And I interviewed a number of leading figures in India and also leading figures in the West. For example, Professor Satya Khalsa from the Harvard School of Medicine, about the benefits that school children can actually receive when yoga is installed into the school curriculum, so that our kids can also have emotional nourishment, self-esteem through implementation of these yogic practices, because yoga is not just stretching and bending, it's an entire value system.
Really fascinating. Now, I feel there's a massive shift at the moment happening. We're seeing more and more people moving into yoga, more meditation happening. We're seeing it move into corporate settings as well. The likes of Google using it. So I think there's very much a shift in awareness, and I think this is coming at the right time.
You're absolutely right, and it's very, very interesting. So, like, yoga is also being installed into prisons. So there's a charitable trust called the Prison Phoenix Trust, and they install yoga teachers into prisons, and they teach prisoners yoga and meditation for the purposes of prisoner rehabilitation, to provide that sort of emotional nourishment which they need in order to prevent them from further rehabilitation. Because why do people offend? It's because of like a lack of esteem, a lack of direction, a number of different things, but ultimately feeling good about oneself is what causes one to commit crime.
Yes, and I feel that I worked in a prison many years ago, and not doing what I do now, but in my other profession as an artist originally. And what I realised was that they were almost a missed opportunity, prisoners, and that they were lost within themselves, and they'd found a route, and they were incredibly intelligent at using that route, but actually it wasn't very beneficial for the rest of society or themselves.
Right, absolutely, yeah. And so, like, everybody does things to try and make themselves feel happy. I mean, look, when I was a kid, like I said, I had a complete lack of self-esteem. And when I actually used to I'd get myself into, I was what I'd call a bit of a delinquent. And when I'd get myself arrested here and there as a child, I actually used to feel quite proud of myself because, wow, that was naughty. Now other people, my social peers that were of the same mindset as myself, would look at me with some sort of kudos, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's sort of like, unfortunately, like a twisted set of values, because ultimately, one way or another, kids are going to get self-esteem one way or another, whether it's by doing good in the eyes of society or bad in the eyes of society that's impressive in the eyes of their friends. They're going to make sure they get self-esteem somehow, some way. And you know, like, meditation itself is being installed into prisons. There's the most incredible documentary, two of the most incredible documentaries ever. Doing Time, Doing Vipassana. Vipassana is a system of meditation. Then there's another documentary called The Dhamma Brothers, Dhamma, and it's about people in prisons that have these 10-day meditations that most people have begun to hear about nowadays, where there's no talking, there's just meditating throughout the day, and the effects on the prisoners from implementing this meditation technique. And like in America, some of the prisoners were in there for murder and armed robbery, doing life sentences and all the rest of it. And the documentaries are really, really profound. That's the Dhamma Brothers and Doing Time, Doing Vipassana. If anybody can get hold of those CDs, then they need to do that.
Oh. So basically, what in particular took you to India to film? What was it that inspired you to?
Right. Well, I first got to India in 2011. And actually at the time I thought that I wanted to become an Ayurvedic doctor. And I thought that I was going to go there for 5 years and learn Ayurveda. And so I went there to do a 3-month course initially just to see how it felt for me. But while I was actually there, I visited a couple of nature cure hospitals. I became friendly with a nature cure doctor. And it was just the practice of naturopathy that really, really, really lit me up, because I know that, like, in the West, people often complain about herbal medicine and what's the quality of the herbs. Now, there's side effects and all the rest of it. And medicinal herbs do get a bit of a bashing in the press. But with nature cure, as practiced in India, it's completely and utterly different. So there they use nutrition. Okay? They use fasting. Massage, hydrotherapy, yoga therapy, juice therapies. And so there's virtually absolutely no scope for side effects whatsoever. People get hip baths, spinal baths, full immersion baths, ice packs applied in various ways. So we're talking about water, ice or steam. There's literally no scope for side effect, literally no scope for any complaint to be leveled at that sort of a practice. Also juices. Everybody in the entire world is virtually buying their juices and taking juices for the purposes of promoting health. And also in India, they use various juices to treat various conditions. And so juices, can there be any possible scope for side effects? Of course not. So it was really the fact that it's absolutely viable for every single person, and that it's a system where literally no complaints can be leveled for side effects, that really, really got me. I thought, hang on, this can work.
They're also using acupuncture, is my understanding,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So they use acupuncture. They don't actually practice TCM, traditional Chinese medicine acupuncture. They use acupuncture mainly for musculoskeletal problems, anxiety and insomnia. So it's not TCM acupuncture they're actually using. It's that which I've just described. But then when in combination with fasting, nutrition, yoga therapy, and then processes of eliminating toxicity, what naturopaths call toxicity from the body, it's a very, very powerful combination. And I saw people with a load of different treatments getting treated. You know, there'll be people that will be arriving in hospital unable to walk with like ankylosing spondylitis where the hip bones are fused and the patient couldn't walk, or a lady that's 71 years old arriving in a hospital with hypothyroid, unable to walk. And then after some time of treatment, for example, the guy with ankylosing spondylitis, I have footage of him in a yoga class, taking part in a yoga class from having not actually been able to walk. He's then practicing yoga. And of course, I interview these patients, I document their recoveries, and it's a very, very, very unique opportunity to see the full range of naturopathic treatments.
So take me through a typical way that these hospitals, because they're hospitals, aren't they, that you're filmed in?
But what people need to do is just banish the notion of a hospital they have in their mind right now. So I went to a yoga therapy research center. It's the world's leading yoga therapy research center called SVYASA, Swami Vivekananda Yoga Anusandhana Samsthana. SVYASA for short is a lot easier. And it's just a very, very, very spiritual place. So, you know, it's more like of an ashram type environment. And then there's SDM, Nature Cure and Yoga Hospital near to Mangalore. SDM is short for Sri Dharmasthala Manjunateshwara. And, it's the most beautiful place you'll have ever come across in your entire life, set in the sort of tropical regions of Karnataka. It's exactly like Kerala with all these coconut trees all over the place. It's the most beautiful place ever. And, they're just amazing. So people need to banish their notion of hospitals as they, perceive them to be in the West. Now, you're going to ask me a question, I think, about the daily treatment schedules or something like that.
Yeah, I was wondering, how are they treating people in particular? What is the route through their treatment?
Well, the route through the treatment, I mean, the naturopathic philosophy is to stop the process of intoxicating the body through food and drink. So we can design a diet that's highly acidic, that will prevent waste from moving out of the body, that will cause or contribute towards constipation and acidity of the body and depress the immune system. Or we can design a diet that does the opposite, that's alkalizing, that boosts the immunity, that supports elimination of waste from the body. So we stop the process of intoxication via our food and drink habits, and we start the process of elimination. So that's the very, very core principle of Nature Cure itself. And then, of course, we modulate body pH through alkalization of the body, because alkalization of the body is very, very important to metabolism and enzymes and that sort of thing too.
And what specifically were they doing? So I'm more interested, because I know my audience are going to be asking, how did they take them through the treatment? What specifically were they doing?
So you'll wake up in the morning at 6 a.m., you practice your yoga therapy class. So there's yoga for diabetes, there's yoga for respiratory problems, there's yoga for high blood pressure, there's yoga for problems of the digestive system. So you practice your yoga therapy class for the first hour from 6 till 7. So there's specific sequences of postures for the particular disorders. Then after that, they do yogic cleanses where you eliminate waste from the upper part of the respiratory tract. So there's pouring lightly salted water through the nostril, through one nostril, and then it comes out the other nostril. Then they also insert like a plastic catheter up the nose and out the back of the sinus. They take it out the mouth. So this plastic catheter is inside the nostril, and then it comes out of the mouth, and you actually move physical obstructions like mucus through the nasal cavity, which obviously really helps respiratory disorders. Called yogic kriyas. I've got them on the documentary, and they're totally mind-blowing for people that don't really know about them. And really and truly, to get to know what I'm talking about clearly, you actually have to watch the documentary, but it's quite mind-blowing. So you get up in the morning, you practice your yoga therapy class from 6 till 7. Then I think at 7 o'clock there'll be juices. So if someone has like high cholesterol, they'll take beetroot juice. If somebody has diabetes, they'll have bitter gourd juice, etc., etc. If they have acidity, they'll take ash gourd juice. Then after the juices, they'll all receive hydrotherapy. So they'll go for their hip baths or other applications of hydrotherapy. There are numerous hydrotherapy techniques and applications. Then after that, there's lunch, and after lunch they'll all receive mud packs. They have mud packs over the abdomen and over the eyes, which is very, very relaxing. It reduces heat inside the body. It's a sedative. It's very, very good. And then after lunch, there'll be more hydrotherapy. There'll also be massage. There'll be physiotherapy as well. There'll also sometimes be acupuncture after lunch as well, after the mud packs are taken off. And then towards the evening, you've got an evening yoga class, and then there's also evening meditation classes. There's also evening yogic chanting class, yogic singing classes, where the doctors will actually sing to the patients, and the patients will actually sing back to the doctors, and they're singing like classical Indian songs and yogic songs or chantings, and it's so profoundly, enchantingly beautiful. It really, really is. So it's, in a sense, it's like a health boot camp, where you receive your treatments from the morning right until the evening, a different set of treatments. Some patients will be receiving physiotherapy, some will be receiving acupuncture. It's really, really it's a massive eye-opener. It's so incredible the way all these separate healing modalities are actually meticulously integrated so that it becomes one whole, it becomes one system. And over there in India, this system, Nature Cure, is officially recognized by the government of India and has been for the last 30 years approximately. So patients go to those hospitals in order to receive naturopathic treatment exclusively that does not include the use of pharmaceutical drugs, and the hospitals themselves are recognized by the government.
Now, are those hospitals paid for by the government, or are they actually paid for privately?
They're paid for by the patients.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what completely amazed me when we were talking originally, and really hooked me in, was the fact that they're resolving things like chronic kidney disease.
Right.
Real chronic, very deep issues, aren't they?
So that is absolutely profound. So in the West, if we have chronic kidney failure and we're put on dialysis machines, then our prognosis is that we will probably die within 5 to 7 years. That's the reality of dialysis. So dialysis is unfortunately a death sentence. Not, however, if you go to particular and the correct naturopathic hospitals in India. So there's one such hospital called Gandhiji Nature Cure Hospital in Thrissur, southern Kerala, where they treat patients that have chronic kidney failure and also acute kidney failure, acute sudden kidney failure that occurs all of a sudden, known as acute kidney failure, can be caused by drugs such as painkillers and dyes that they use for imaging techniques. So they treat acute kidney failure, which is invariably through the drugs that patients have taken, and chronic kidney failure, which is invariably on the whole due to diabetes and high blood pressure. There, patients are treated nutritionally, herbally, with hydrotherapy and specific types of massages. And over time, the markers for kidney disease, such as the levels of creatinine, reduce. Patients are subsequently reduced on the frequency of dialysis machines. So sometimes a patient will be on a dialysis machine 3 times a week. Then after some time, it will be reduced to twice a week, then 1 time a week, then once every 10 days, then once every 2 weeks, until eventually the patients are 100% off dialysis machines, and then they get discharged. And after discharge, they need to follow a specific herbal and nutritional protocol. And if they do that, which they all do, they go on to lead healthy and happy lives until the natural date that they pass away. So it's not a case of having a lifespan of another 5 years when you're on dialysis. The patients there come off their dialysis machines, and they have a very, very cool hydrotherapy technique, which is very, very simple, called a kidney pack. So there they'll apply a hot water bottle over the kidney area on the lower back. They'll apply an ice pack over the abdomen. They'll wrap it round with a woolen cloth, and they lie. It's quite tight, and they lie down on the bed. And the deep heat from the hot water bottle penetrates through the muscles of the back to the renal arteries, the arteries that supply the kidneys. And the heat causes the dilation of the renal arteries, which increases filtration of the kidneys, which reduces markers for kidney disease, which improves kidney function. And it's really, really cool. Then they also use other fresh herbally prepared juices. They also leach. They call it leaching. They boil all the food that they have, that the patients eat. So when you boil the food, all the electrolytes, all the potassium, sodium, etc., come out of the foods. So the kidneys don't have extra work of eliminating or retaining, deciding what to do of those electrolytes. So what they do is, through boiling the food, they reduce the vitamin and mineral content of the food, giving therefore the kidneys less work to do.
Yes.
So nutrition, hydrotherapy, massage is absolutely key, especially nutrition with regards to kidney failure.
Effectively, what they're doing is using the old-fashioned techniques that naturopaths were taught many, many years ago, and in many respects although they're still used, they're nowhere near used like this in a very concentrated type of approach, unless you specifically go to a spa, and then I don't think they're used like this, are they? Let's face it.
No, absolutely. They'll never use these sort of techniques in a spa. In a spa, you'll get jacuzzis and whirlpool baths and that sort of thing, which, if you put your back against the sort of like jet sprays and the jacuzzis in the spas, it can definitely help back pain and that sort of thing, which is really cool. But here they use the full range of what I call Kneep hydrotherapy techniques.
Yeah.
So Sebastian Kneep, back in the 1700s, coined the term nature cure. And his techniques were then, and also Presneitz before him, but their techniques were copied around the world and taken to the States. And then there's John Harvey Kellogg that set up a huge sanatorium called Battle Creek that used to have at any one time 1,000 patients who were being treated with hydrotherapy. And so in India, they've rescued nature cure as it used to be practiced in the West up until the 1940s, in which case its practice was neglected. And they've embellished it. So they've taken Western hydrotherapy, Kneep hydrotherapy, and nutrition and fasting and massage and all the rest of it, but they've also added the acupuncture component. They've added the yoga therapy component, which is highly effective. Yeah. And just to give you a little example, the practice of yoga therapy made its way into the British Medical Journal back in 1985, which was a study conducted on yoga for bronchial asthma at this place that I mentioned, SVASA. And so that shows obviously how effective the correct yogic techniques can be for chronic illness. So they've taken Western hydrotherapy, nutrition, fasting, and that sort of thing, and they've added acupuncture and they've added yoga therapy and meditation to sort of nourish people on an emotional level, because our stress levels, prolonged stress cycles, are so profoundly influential on our health. This
is basically a bringing together of all of the techniques that we really should be using, and we should be using in the type of hospital in quotations setting, so that we can actually restore people's health properly. Because at the moment we're working predominantly as individual practitioners, and I will send clients off to do yoga, I'll send them off to do the mind work, I'll send them off to do acupuncture, etc., etc. But they're very much left. They have a session and then they go. What this is doing is bringing it all under one roof and effectively saying you stay here until you've got well.
Absolutely 100% spot on correct there, Debbie. And that's what I talk about in the documentary, the fact that, like, if someone, for example, has a health issue and they're wanting to be treated without taking pharmaceutical drugs, what do they actually do? The answer is you'll do a Google search.
Yeah.
You might think, oh, well, hang on, I found a good nutritional therapist here, so I'll go and see that person. Oops, I found a great acupuncturist over there, right? Yeah. I'll go and see that person. Or, oh, hang on, there's a great massage therapist over here, right? I'll go. And, people might run around like mixing and matching to their own sort of like their own discretion, which is obviously not the way it should be done. Like you just said, it should all be done under one roof, an integrated set of treatments from morning until evening, conducted by a group of therapists working together on the same patients.
Yeah, I've had many requests over the years from clients for them to move in with me, but ultimately to move in with my set of practitioners and to actually work with them almost continuously. And this is the approach that really we are missing a trick on. Now I'm just going to move on, because in the trailer that you've sent me, the first doctor in there talks about how he works to remove the hatred in the patient's heart. And something you really don't hear about in Western medicine is dealing with the emotional side of health issues, do we?
Right. So the trailer I didn't mention in the trailer who was who in terms of like titles and where they're working and their responsibilities. That will be sort of like detailed in the documentary, you know. So as a person becomes interviewed, you'll see their credentials come up on the screen. So the person you're actually talking about is Professor Raghuram. He's also known as Raghuram G, which means like spiritual or highly esteemed person. And he is the head of the Department for Spirituality in the Yoga Therapy Research Center that I mentioned, SVASA. So there, I'd like your listeners to be aware of, is in a hospital in India, in a nature cure hospital, you have a Department of Spirituality. I mean, that's a huge, massive thing, isn't it? That's an incredible thing. And so he was telling me that how he works with people on an emotional level to remove the hatred, to remove the anger, remove the jealousy, so that, in his own words, he can create and restore a harmony in the heart of the person he's talking to. And that's profound. That's really, really deep, because our stress levels can be so destructive to our bodies. The stress hormones that circulate around our bodies that are there much too long that they actually should be are very, very destructive. So through working on our emotions are ultimately the source to healing all of our illnesses. There's no question about that.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I thought it was absolutely profound, and really is the way that we should be integrating our approaches. Now, they use fasting, something I rarely use now, because if I do fasting, it tends to be with practitioners or people who've very much along the route of following a very natural diet. I don't do it because of the toxicity that my clients tend to be carrying, and from the environment that we tend to live in nowadays. But how are they managing that in their hospitals? Do they have the same level of toxicity over there that we have?
Sort of like difficult for me to answer if like people in India have the same level of toxicity that we might have, but like don't forget that like India is the world capital for diabetes, so I mean that might indicate something. But like fasting, so like, you know, like I'd say to people, to be honest, that a short fast, which would be up to 3 days, is something that people probably could do at home. Although they need to be in communication with a naturopath, certainly. So I wouldn't advise people to take it upon themselves to do it without being in communication with a naturopath or somebody they're actually seeing at the time. But like longer fasts, 10 days, this fasting center, people fast for up to 20, 30 and 40 days a time. And so there's no way that anybody can practice something like that at home by themselves. It's just not feasible. So there, the fasting center where I was at, doctors take blood tests regularly. You know, so the patients are monitored 24/7. Don't forget also, in the hospital where patients are being treated for kidney failure, the patients are being monitored 24/7. You know, so patients don't go to practitioners there, sit down for an hour, get a consultation, and then leave and come back in a week or two's time. It doesn't work like that. So the patients there are very carefully monitored. So also, you know, their patients there are also educated into what they're doing, why they're doing it. You know, so they actually understand why they're doing what they're doing. And so that healing, so when we fast, the body's stimulated to eliminate its toxicity, the toxic load that we actually inherit from our parents. And so this can come in the form of migraines, even anger, irritability, anxiety, vomiting, diarrhea, skin rashes. And so they're all managed naturopathically. For example, if somebody has a migraine, what a common treatment for a migraine would be an ice massage over their head with an ice pack. So an ice pack to the head. And the feet would be put in a warm foot bath. So we got an ice application on the head, and the feet are in a warm foot bath. And so what happens is the blood is drained from the head down towards the feet. That's a very, very simple application for migraines. I was actually just thinking that the opposite is also true. If somebody has bleeding from around the leg area, like a gash, what they tend to do is wrap up the leg with towel to stem the bleeding, apply an ice pack, elevate the leg, and then put a hot pack around the chest, stimulating blood circulation to the chest, inhibiting blood circulation to the leg. So it's the exact opposite of the principle with a migraine. But patients ultimately are educated into what to actually expect with regards to fasting and any other treatment, and it's all very, very carefully managed.
Absolutely fascinating, absolutely fascinating, I have to say. And now, what we see is that basically the body has the power to heal itself if left alone, don't we? With no intervention really apart from nature itself.
Absolutely. So like, I interviewed a professor called Alex Hankey, who's from Cambridge University, also a graduate from Stanford University. He's a postdoctorate fellow from Stanford University. He now teaches PhD students at the Yoga Therapy Research Center in southern India that I mentioned. And he's has his own theory of regulation. And ultimately it is that when the body is left alone, it has the capacity to heal. Now, people need to people might find that confusing, but on a very small sort of superficial level, it will resonate with people. For example, if I say that you cut yourself on a rose bush, okay, and you have a little cut, and then there's some bleeding, a minor abrasion of some sort, okay, you instantly know that the bleeding is going to stem, a scab is going to form, the scab is going to harden. Eventually, after time, the scab's going to come off. You're going to forget that you ever had a little cut there, okay, because the body has healed itself. Okay, so the body does the same thing internally. So when we stop encumbering our body with a huge volume of food to digest, the body naturally introverts its energy, or should I say directs its energy, to the tissues that need to be repaired. So the body has an innate wisdom. And Alex Hankey, this professor, was talking about the fact that through complexity biology, it's beginning to become recognized how this internal force directs the body to heal itself. This has been the practice of nature cure for hundreds of years. This has been the practice of Ayurveda for 5,000 years. And it takes naturopaths to come up with the studies to prove it if they want to do that.
Yes.
But in India, they call it prana.
Right.
In China, they call it chi. In homeopathy, and even in nature cure, we call it vital force. But every system of healthcare recognizes an internal wisdom and an internal energy that supports the body's self-healing capacity. Other, of course, than our counterparts in the allopathic conventional industry medicine.
Now, Robert, as my final question, I just want to know, what did you personally come away with in regards to growth and development after making this documentary?
Well, that's a very, very interesting question. So, really, I had the opportunity to see what's actually needed to treat chronic illness. I understand the role that nature cure can play in the prevention and treatment of chronic illness. What we need to apply in terms of therapies, how heavy we need to go in terms of the number of therapies we need to apply, and how profoundly effective this system of healthcare is for the treatment of all chronic diseases. So if patients have advanced cardiovascular cases, of course, we happily refer them to our GP. Okay, there's no question about that. But for the treatment of lifestyle disorders, for the treatment of high blood pressure, for the treatment of high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, arthritis, urinary disorders, respiratory disorders, and even, as we've seen on the documentary, chronic kidney failure. But for practitioners in the West, nature cure is perfectly effective in the treatment of chronic illness. And it's a system of education. Nature cure is not just about treatment, it's about education. Educating people how to live the right lifestyle, the right nutrition, the right dietary habits, regular periodical detoxification, stress management.
So true.
Yeah.
I absolutely totally agree that we are about educating people in regards to how to live a balanced life for themselves within a society that is particularly unbalanced nowadays.
And I really hope that I've been able to do that through the documentary, and I really intend for the documentary to be a massive, massive eye-opener, so that people here have all heard of someone that might have been treated with acupuncture or changed their diet or done some yoga and had various results with a various health condition of one sort or another. but they may not have really seen the full range, the full healing potential, the full healing power of Nature Cure in a clinical environment where people with real serious illnesses are actually treated.
Well,
very, very effectively. And I'm hoping that people will view this documentary and really be inspired through it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that we're surrounded now by elements of natural health, and there's so much conflict in advice through our mainstream media that people are very confused in regards to how to move themselves forward. But I think documentaries like your own are really going to help people to understand that the body really does have the power to heal itself if given the right things to do it. Now, just tell people you've got a screening of Nature Cure, the Revival, Holistic Healthcare Without Drugs, happening in May. So if you'd like to give details out about that and how people get in contact with you and your website so that people can...
Okay, I'll also hand out my phone number as well. So the screening, is obviously the screening of the documentary. As well as that, a lady called Heather Mason from the Minded Institute, the CEO of the Minded Institute, she's in the process of installing yoga into the NHS system, and she meets with members of Parliament in the House of Commons to discuss it. She's coming along to give a talk on yoga for chronic illness. Then there's also the Prison Phoenix Trust, who I mentioned earlier on in this documentary, who install yoga teachers into prisons for the purposes of prisoner rehabilitation. They're coming along to give a talk too. And the event itself and the name of the documentary itself is Nature Cure, the Revival, because it is the revival of Nature Cure, because Nature Cure used to be practiced widespread throughout Europe. And this country is the country of origin of Nature Cure. And so this documentary is the revival of Nature Cure. So it's Nature Cure, the Revival. It's taking place on the 21st of May. That's next month. It's a Saturday from 10:15 to 3:15. It costs £22 to attend. You can purchase your tickets on Eventbrite. If you type in the following link, naturecuretherevival.eventbrite.co.uk, you'll find it will come up there. And it's taking place in Dalston, East London, Queensbridge Road. That's in the Tomlinson Centre. That's the name of the building. And the postcode is E8. 3ND, 3 November Delta.
Fantastic.
And it's going to be a profoundly interesting day, so I'd love as many people to come down as possible.
And can you give out your website so people can...
Sure, my website is www.ihthealth.co.uk. It's IHT for Integrated Holistic Therapy. So it's ihthealth.co.uk, where people can see the trailer there as well. And if anyone's even interested in giving me a call sometime, my phone number is 07753 748 149.
That's a UK mobile, everybody. So today I've had Robert Mazure on, who's a documentary maker and a naturopath, talking about his film Nature Cure, the Revival. I'm just going to tell you, this is all about education. We haven't given you any medical advice today. Please go and find out what to do with your practitioners and your GP if you need to. Thank you very much. And you've been listening to Food for Thought.